Okay folks, so we're in the E60 M5 again. It's been a while, I know. I've been saying that about every car in the last couple of videos, but it is what it is. We're going to be doing some OEM Plus modifications today. I've been collecting a few parts over the last few months, and I finally got a nice little selection that will make a sort of video theme. Now I'm going to show you the bits we're going to be fitting on the interior later on, because there was no point in me getting them out here because of these clouds. It might start raining at any second. But we have got a few of the exterior parts already outside. The very first thing is over here. So it's a set of wheels from a BMW M6. So these are the style 167s. Managed to get these at a very good price up in Scotland, and big shout out to Paul who managed to get them down to me. But yeah, in terms of what we're going to be fitting first is a set of these eye back lowering springs. Yes, I know some of you may not be a fan of putting lowering springs on an M5. It's kind of like a luxury cruiser, but the ride height at the front is very strange. It's a bit like that on most BMWs. They sit pretty low at the back, but there's something quite funny about these springs which I found out on the M5 forums online. The car that's owned by BMW Classic themselves, the Interlagos Blue M5, the one with that 507 plate, I'll probably throw up a picture on the screen, actually has these lowering springs. So yeah, BMW doesn't even have a standard sitting E60 M5, so it's good for them, it'll be good for us. We're going to begin with the front strut. I've been told this is actually easier than the rear, which is normally the opposite of something like this or a Golf. At the top here, you've got these 3 nuts as usual. I've just gone ahead and taken off this black plastic cover. And you can see here, that's the connector for the EDC. Down by the strut, we've got these 2 bolts here. So this is the main pinch bolt, which is going through onto the other side. And we've got another one which goes straight into the hub. The main real challenge is actually just getting the strut out without damaging the wing here. So I'm going to tape this up as best as I can. Got this broken torque wrench, which I can use. I've got a new one, and we won't be using this to torque anything up, so don't worry. This one is a lot shorter. There we are, that moves out the way now. And next I'm going to use one of these, which is like a strut spreader socket thing. There is a little gap there, you can see that's loose. So what you want to do is simply just turn it, and then that will lock into place. I'll do it now, I can't hold both things. So what that does is it just slightly opens this gap here, which allows the strut to just come out. And for these 3, you just need a 13mm. And that's all 3 of them loose. Okay, a little bit of a rookie error here, don't replicate this part. Basically when I undid those, supposed to have the jack on standby underneath there. I was gonna go get it, but by that point this thing had already dropped and it had cleared this by miles, so there's obviously a lot of stress on that. It still isn't ideal. I'm gonna check if everything's all sound, but yeah, glad I didn't damage the car. Also another little tip, make sure you remove these from this little box here. They're just on clip. Now we are going to use some spring compressors, which I've got over here, to clamp this down. To remove this top nut, you're supposed to normally use one of them open-ended sockets or whatever. Believe me, I did try and get hold of some, but they're out of stock absolutely everywhere. The ones that were listed, they have like 3 weeks delivery. So what we're going to do is use a normal 24mm socket. A bit of a bodge, I don't recommend following this if you don't like this sort of thing. Going to get some locking pliers, put some microfiber around them, and basically lock the center of the sort of shock there to stop it spinning. It did do the trick. Top mount, dust boot, which has dust in it. Quick little side-by-side comparison. As you can see, it's slightly shorter, but it's not a crazy drop. The H&R springs are actually a lot lower. It is cool how this original spring is still in pretty good condition. It's not fully rusted out. It still has got most of the black paint. That is a front EDC shock for an E60 M5. Got some yellow writing here, which is peeled off. Might blast some of this off with brake cleaner. There's the OE bump stop. I'm going to retain that. Very fancy. Cleaned up this lower boot here, so that goes straight on. It can only go on one way. There's like a ridge here. It looks like it's meant to go up to there, but then the spring doesn't really sit flush. I'm just going off how the other one came off, so I'll just follow exactly as it was. Goes in like so. Top mount on. Yeah, it's plenty of thread. And there we have it, one assembled shock with the eye back spring. Perfect around there. Goes up to the witness mark there. There's actually one way to get these in. There's a little notch there you can see at the front. That lines up with the back part there where we put that spreader tool in. There we are. Get these threaded on. make sure they're all equally up. I had the back two poking up first, and you just had to readjust the jack on the hub to get this one to come up a bit more. Torque these to 34 Newton meters. Right, so all the bolts are back in and all the lines are in their correct place. Now I do need to torque up the pinch bolt. Brand new torque wrench, the other one's broken, it's over there on the floor. They are exactly the same, but this one's new and actually is calibrated. I've read the pinch bolt is 81 Newton meters. Okay, so now that we're done with that, we can move on to the rear suspension. This is a bit more involved, I'll show you why. First of all, you need to remove these trims. I've already gone ahead and made a start on that side, but we'll focus on this one first. There's meant to be a few rivets, but for some reason this one's already got them missing. It's probably been out in the past. Okay, so that's out. Now this part here, we can leave it in. We've got a kind of foam pad here, which is in front of the struts. Now this is the connector for the EDC on the rear. Disconnected that. Back here, you've got 3 nuts, which are 13 mils again. And that is basically what's holding the struts into the car. Now down here in the wheel arch, I've seen conflicting reports. Let's get the spider web out the way. I was watching an M6 change out, and he just basically undid the bolt here off the shock and whacked it in and got it out. No idea how he did that, but with the M5 ones, I've always seen it to be remove this top arm here from there, gives a bit more clearance, and ideally remove the anti-roll bar drop link there. Yeah, no signs of any leaks or anything, which is good. Shouldn't be too tight. Got a small ratchet. The best way I found to undo that is not by using 2 spanners, because that's probably not been out in 14 years. I needed a bit more leverage. So using this old torque wrench I've got, which is basically acting like a long thin ratchet at this point. Got a short 18 mil on that. I'll come up through here. Basically use my foot down here on the end of the ratchet to basically crack it off. Now I just need to get the spanner on the other end and continue with it. Okay, that's out. Next, need to remove this one here. Got the 18mm nut off the end of the drop link. There is a Torx T30 in there, which you need to hold. I did do that. Where's it gone? Managed to break it. Allowed me to just push this up and out the way, which is all really what I need. Good. Definitely a faff, this is. Finally, get that to rest on the floor. That comes off. And this cup. Quick little comparison of both springs. The eye back is obviously here on the right. Slightly shorter, but not overkill, which I'm glad about, because the standard spring does sit quite low on the car. Now the eye backs do have this cover here, which initially I thought had to come off, but then having a look at the OE spring, it again has some sort of cover. Now there's only really one place to put this. If you look on here, the bottom of this is pretty much just smooth metal, so that can rotate once it's in. But this has to end up here. It's a fixed point, unlike the front one. So at this point, you probably will need an extra pair of hands to line it up at the top once you put it through there, or you may just get lucky. The other thing I really want to point out is make sure you have this bush on the inner edge going into the hub, and not that side. And there we have it, that's in. I've just gone ahead and tightened it at the top. From here, it's pretty much a reverse of what we did earlier. I need to get the main sort of strut bolt in. Get that arm back up in there, get the drop link back in, and then once that's done, I'll get the other side done. Don't need to repeat it on video, it's the same exact process. So it's the next day, all the eye backs have been fitted, everything's all tightened back up. Next stage is to get these new wheels on. Now there are a few different versions of the 167s. You got these which are straight off an M6, then you got the ones that were optional on the E60 M5. Then you got some really rare versions which were on that M6 competition. There's very few of them, so you're probably never going to see a set. Those are actually wider as well at the back. But the main difference between the M5 and the M6 wheel is the offset. So the M5 rear is an ET28 and the M6 rear is an ET17. So that basically means this will sit on the car like it has an 11mm spacer. Might look a bit strange with the already 12mm that I've got on there, so that might have to come off. But another strange thing with that is that the person's opted for a 285/40 on the back. It's meant to have the same tyre size as an M5, so maybe they just got whatever they could. But yeah, pretty cool wheel. They are the ones that were fitted to the M5 CSL prototype, the one with the DCT and all of that. And they are forged, so they're noticeably lighter to pick up. I'm still pretty undecided though, because I think that this is the iconic look for this car. Either way, we'll give it a go. We'll put these on this side and the original ones on that side and see how the car sits. Yeah, these are noticeably lighter than the original wheels. Now I will say these wheels give it a bit of a modern vibe, because the E60 has aged pretty well generally, and these are very similar to modern M cars, so can see the appeal. These are going to be heavy. Oh, they are. I know it looks a bit odd. It's because it's still kind of jacked up and in a weird position. Hope it's got enough battery life. V10, first time we've heard it in today's video. Quite curious to see how this looks. Have we got any warnings? No, just PDC warning as before. How's it looking? Bet the alignment's a mess now. That looks spot on. 12mm spacer with the OE size tyre. What are we thinking, folks? Which looks better? Power steering's making a load of noise. Let's turn it off. Jeez, I think a 12mm spacer is a bit too much for those on the back, especially with that tyre. So here's what the OE tyre would look like. And that's obviously 11 offset difference as well. Okay, so now that we're done with the suspension and the wheels and basically all the dirty work, I thought we'd take a breather, sit inside the M5 and move on to the next part of the video. And that is basically upgrading this interior. Now this particular M5 is an LCI, so it has a few little changes. It's a bit fresher in here. But for the most part, this car isn't like a crazy spec or anything. I just wanted Interlagos blue and Silverstone interior. That was my requirements when looking for one of these. For all intents and purposes, I would have been totally satisfied with a completely standard M5 and just left it as it was. But of course, this is a bit of a project for the channel. So as you will recall, I fitted this Alcantara wheel, which has the M stitching on it, together with a Silverstone stripe that matches the rest of the interior. And we also retrofitted this Alcantara headliner, which was from an M5, which had the upgraded option. But today we're going to be taking the interior quite a few steps forward. So let me hop out now and show you what I've got. Okay, so here's all the bits laid out on the floor. Like I said, I was getting a thumbnail, so we got the remaining 167s over there. Pretty cool shot, I would say. Now this is a full leather dashboard from an E60 M5. Which also happens to be in Silverstone. The whole thing is covered in leather. The top bit's in black and the lower half is in Silverstone, so it'll match up perfectly with the interior. If you look at the normal dash, it's basically this nice soft touch plastic, which itself isn't too bad. Now I'm sure many of you know the E60 M5 had this feature when it was new where the bolsters basically hug you around the corners, and this car never had the option fitted to it. So that's what these are. They're known as the active seats. Any of you E60 guys will know exactly what they are. My favorite feature though, apart from the bolster kind of thing, is basically the backrest. If you look here, they're actually adjustable from the top, which is just a lot more comfortable. I've noticed with this, when I'm on the motorway, the fact that the backrest is kind of fixed, it can feel like you're leaning back at times. But yeah, nothing against this interior. I do like it, but we're just going to take it up a notch. Now before we begin, I just want to put a few things out there, some requests essentially. The one first thing, make sure you are subscribed if you are enjoying the video so far and you're liking it and all that good stuff. But the second thing is the active seats. I know quite a few people have retrofitted them, and the rest of the plugs should just plug in straight away as they should. But to actually get the bolsters working, I believe you have to run some PT CAN wires to the DSC module. I'm not too clued up on that, so if any of you know someone who can do that, let me know. Now the third thing, you may have noticed in that set over there, I'm missing some essential bits that would complete the full leather kind of transformation, and that is the door cards. I did actually have the option of buying the door cards from that particular car, but unfortunately it was a pre-LCI and the LCI door cards are completely different, so it wouldn't have made sense. On the off chance that someone has a right-hand drive braking LCI M5 with Silverstone full leather interior, please let me know. What's this? There's tissue paper in here. Okay, so sometime later we've got all the dash and everything all out. I've also just given the interior a bit of a clean with a good old Henry. Might as well take a seat in here if you ever want to see what an E60 M5 is like with no dashboard and no center console. This is what it is. Gear shift is still in. As usual, when you pull the center console out, the handbrake, you really have to have it tugged all the way up. It's actually only held in with 4 10mm. You got these ones along here. The rest of it is just unclipping whatever's attached to the dash. Now my only concern when buying this was it was off a pre-LCI car and they have a few differences around here and also this center bit. Now if you look on this dash, for the most part it's pretty similar. I have noticed though this section here is different as you would expect, but I'm hoping if I undo these screws I can swap over those, because the main hard points probably are the same. It's just these brackets that, you know, allow for, say, the ashtray, which is on an LCI in the center bit here, to be fitted in. Also this here, we've got this bracket on that one, but this sort of thread metal clip is on that side, whereas on this is on the front, and we've got a bit more of a cutout here. So I'll have to figure it out, but yes, predictions are correct. Let me get that one off there, see if it hooks up. Will we be successful in this endeavor? Worth a try. Sometime later I managed to get this swapped over. It was a bit more of a hassle than I initially thought. As you can see by the dust here, I had to go ahead and get the Dremel out. I don't really enjoy using that on nice parts like this, but it had to be done. This bit here was the biggest issue with this trim piece, because on this particular car it has a start button here, and also the trim is different over here. Some of the earlier cars have like a kind of indented trim, so that was probably the case with this because it was off an 05 reg, this car. But either way, all I had to do was pretty much replicate the open kind of gap that this has. Once you take the metal bracket out, it's just basically a bit more open. So this is the LCI bracket which I'll put in. It has an extra mounting point for this vent as well, so you can swap those out. Those original points are the same. In terms of the middle bit here, these holes don't match up towards the bottom, so I had to cut out this bar that goes across there to get this in. The rest of these are identical, and I think those holes were just there to give it an extra set of screws to hold it in, but I'll be honest, that's not going anywhere. The rest of the sort of attachments to this go into this bracket, so we're okay. I think for the most part we can get this back in the car now. I know we're midway putting it back in, but I thought I just had to give my little thoughts on this. This dash looks amazing. It's just brightened up the cabin even further. I mean, speaking of brightness, we've got the sun there illuminating my face. I've routed every cable properly because I took pictures as I went along. Make sure you do that sort of thing if you are going to take on a job like this. Don't just blindly pull everything out. Now before I finish off putting the rest of those bits in, I thought I'd swap over all the various controls and brackets over from the old center console. It did actually come as a full center console, but I took it apart to clean it. A bit undecided actually. I quite like the contrast on this, even though this is normal and this is the only leather covered part. So we swap over the iDrive controller, and the main thing is this kind of bracket here, because the pre-LCI has a ashtray here and the LCI has it in the kind of dash up here. Will this come off now? And there we are, all done. I think I'll get the passenger seat out now. I've left the others in because it makes it easier to put in the dash when you got something to actually sit on. As you can see here, I've gone really extra with the tape. Don't want to take any chances just in case one of them seat rails just hits into the paint, and yeah, I've been there before on other cars. Alright, that's in. Basically a complete dashboard there. Very impressive compared to what it was before, even though it was pretty nice. But that combo with the Alcantara headliner and steering wheel, properly spot on that is. I have still got the original driver's seat in, mainly because I want to try one of these out and see if it actually works. This is out the same car that the dash was out of, which was a pre-LCI. The connections look the same. It's that yellow plug. It's hidden behind this plastic there. So hopefully all the functions work. I know the bolsters won't, but I'll have to do that at a separate time and get the buttons for the dash. Okay, much easier with the headrest. These are in a very high position right now. Let's connect the battery and see if that moves. Okay, CD change is going mad. Right, it goes up and down. Well, it goes down. Does it go up? Oh, it does go up. Top off the seat. There you go. That's the feature that I wanted. There's a separate button here which allows you to... Yeah, that's a game changer, that is. Okay, so it's the next day. It started raining, so there's a bit of chaos on the floor there. I have completed all the mods I had planned for today's video. What I'll do now, I'll insert one of them montages so you can see all in slow-mo, and then we'll wrap up today's video. I feel like now it actually looks like my car. Before it looked like some sort of Interlagos blue E60 M5 press car because everything was so standard looking. I feel like the arches are a bit more pronounced now. I will get rid of those tyres at the back because they're the wrong size. They're one size up. And I've also got a 12mm spacer which doesn't need to be on there because these are already equivalent to like an 11mm compared to those. But yeah, we'll end the video here anyway. It has been a solid 4 or 5 days of filming in between weather and modifying parts and figuring things out. It's not a simple case of just bolting one part in and taking another one out. And there's always a bit of learning on the job, but I do enjoy that sort of thing. I'll let you guys go now. Drop a like on the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe for a lot more content to come. And I'll see you in a few days' time for the next one.